Hey guys, welcome back with Tiger Rag Audibles podcast. This is Camryn Conner. I'm going to lay out the formula for today's podcast. We do have some pretty exciting interviews that I'm going to show y'all today. The news and sports director for Louisiana Radio Network, Jeff Palmero, and assistant editor of Tiger Rag, William Mothers. Both will be sitting down with Alabama beat writer for the Tuscaloosa News, Nick Kelly, and then former LSU football player Gordy Rush, who is also the sideline reporter for LSU Sports Radio Network and the general manager of Guarantee Media. But first, I really want to go over something and nitpick something that Nick Kelly said the other day in an interview. You guys are going to hear this shortly. Nick Kelly is an Alabama beat writer for the Tuscaloosa News. It was basically just him on the premises of talking about this Saturday's game against LSU and Alabama. He was talking about how it's a big game, and I'm just like sitting there and I'm listening and I'm like, okay, well, duh, it's a big game. Duh, LSU Alabama is always a big game every single year, no matter when it's being played. So whenever he'd said that, I was like, my ears peaked, and I was listening, and I was just like, okay, well, let's just hear what he has to say about this. And kind of the whole moral of what he was saying was just that this is only a big game in regards for Alabama this season, in regards for the college playoffs. And my response to that is, no, Nick, it isn't. This is a big game for both of them because whoever wins this Saturday will be in the driver's seat for the SEC West. I believe that LSU is going to be the driver this game. I do also believe that if you're in the driver for the SEC West, that puts you in a really good spot for the SEC championship, that I am hopeful that LSU is going to pull out a win. And then also it puts you in a really, really good spot for the college playoffs. So Nick just kind of discounting that LSU would even be a part of the playoff question really just made me laugh whenever he said it, because obviously someone hasn't done his homework to know that in 2007, LSU was the only team with 2 losses to make it into the BCS championship. And if we remember that year, they won the BCS championship. They also won the national championship that year. And I don't want to get too hopeful here that I think LSU is going to win the national championship, because I do. But I don't want to get ahead of myself for the sake of this argument that LSU does have a shot at making it to the college playoffs this year. The rankings came out. LSU is ranked 14 in the first college football playoff rankings. LSU is the highest two-loss ranked team, and Alabama is ranked 8. That's not really that big of a gap, you guys. LSU does have a shot this Saturday to put the work in, to sit there, to beat Alabama, to close that gap for them, to get higher into their ranking. And guys, I mean, I've got the path for LSU to make it to the playoffs this season. I've sat down, I've done all the work, I've done all the math and the research to sit there and tell you all this path. So after this commercial, I'll let you guys know the path. I would like to thank our sponsors, Paw Paws Campers and Cars, pawpawsrvs.com, 1-800-728-CAMP, 1-800-728-2267.
Hey neighbors, we're not that far from where you are. Make that short drive to Paw Paws Campers in Picayune and see our Wildwood, Catalina, Sportsman, and Zinger trailer lines and our Rockwood and Heritage Glen fifth wheel lines. From Houma to Hammond, Biloxi to Jackson, and Mobile and Pensacola, we're not that far from where you are. Come and see us.
You're gonna love the way we deal. Paw Paws Campers City and Picayune. You're gonna love the way we deal.
That's a good RV, Paw Paw.
All right, welcome back. And as promised, you guys, let me lay down the path. After I give you guys all of my hopes and dreams for this season, you'll be hearing from the man himself, Nick Kelly, who sparked all of this inspiration. I think LSU is going to beat Alabama, and unlike Mr. Nick Kelly, if LSU does beat Alabama, I want to say they have a really good shot at being the first team to enter the college playoffs with 2 losses. If you look at the rankings, LSU is the highest ranked 2-loss team. They are ranked 14. Alabama's ranked 8. Like I said, small gap for them to close in. And I mean, if you need to look at the math and the history of the college playoffs, the first set of rankings that gets put out every single year, it's about a 50% shot that the top 4, at least 50% of those teams are going to be able to make it into the playoffs. And so we have those 4 right now. That is Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, and Florida State in that order. And I'm just thinking, if we're thinking of the 50th percentile rule, I am going to go with Michigan and Florida State making it into the playoffs this year. And I know that's a big thing for me to say, so let me let me start at the top and let me kind of explain myself through this line of thinking. Ohio State is ranked number 1. I think they're going to lose to Michigan, who's ranked number 3, whenever they come head-to-head on November 25th. This means that Ohio State probably will not have the chance to go to the Big Ten or win the Big Ten. If they don't win, probably not going to go to the playoffs. This would be vice versa for Michigan if Michigan lost to Ohio State, but I think Michigan is going to win and Ohio State is going to be out of the round for the season. I'm going to say that the reason Georgia, who's ranked number 2, is going to be eliminated is that LSU is going to beat them in the SEC championship this year. And, of course, we can't speak about Georgia without speaking about their game against Ole Miss. I'm going to say that Ole Miss, who's ranked number 10, is going to lose to Georgia. Georgia's going to be doing LSU as a big favor by taking Ole Miss out of the ranking for this. Ole Miss isn't going to make it to the SEC championship, so they're out of this. And if we're going to just keep going with eliminations back to back, let's eliminate Alabama for this weekend. Alabama is number 8. I'm going to say LSU is going to beat them, and LSU is going to win the rest of their season games this year. We're going to go with Penn State. They're ranked 11. Penn State has 1 loss already, and I'm going to say they're going to lose to Michigan too. While we're at it, they're going to be eliminated. Even though both LSU and Penn State would have 2 losses at this point, LSU is going to stay ahead of Penn State because Penn State's second loss happens later in the season. I'm going to also eliminate Louisville, who is ranked 13, because I want to say they're going to lose to Florida State in the ACC championship game. Missouri, who's ranked 12, is either going to lose to Georgia this weekend whenever they go head-to-head, or they're going to lose to LSU again in the SEC championship game, thus be eliminated then. So far, we've eliminated 2 teams on the basis of the 50th percentile rule, that is Ohio State and Georgia. We've also eliminated Alabama, Ole Miss, Penn State, Louisville, and Missouri. The remaining teams are going to be Washington, Oregon, Texas, and Oklahoma, and kind of follow along with me for this one. Let's just take them one at a time. So Texas's only loss is Oklahoma, and Oklahoma has just lost to Kansas this past week, if you guys were paying attention. Because Oklahoma is playing Oklahoma State, which is their big rivalry, you guys, the Bedlam rivalry. So I'm going to say that Oklahoma State is going to pull past and beat Oklahoma this weekend, and then Oklahoma State is going to be the team to play Texas in the Big Ten championship. Because the Big Ten championship takes the 2 team with the winningest percentage, I'm going to say Texas versus Oklahoma State winning out. Looking at the history between Oklahoma State and Texas, the past 2 years straight, you guys, Oklahoma State has beat Texas. It's very doable for this to work out. And I'm telling you, I'm not biased just because I'm the one giving this argument. I think that Oklahoma State would come out against Texas again for the 3rd year straight. So now that we've got that, we can add Oklahoma and Texas to the eliminated list. Now we're just looking at 2 teams remaining. Washington, who's undefeated right now, and Oregon. Washington, I'm going to say, is either going to lose to USC or Utah within the next 2 weeks, so that'll be 1 loss for them. I'm going to say they're going to lose to USC. I'm also going to say that Oregon is going to lose to either USC or Oregon State. And just like the Big Ten, the Pac-12 takes the top 2 in conference to make their championship. So if how I'm thinking is going to work out, we're looking at USC and Washington in the Pac-12 championship, and I'm going to take USC to beat Washington for possibly the 2nd time this season. And now, guys, with everybody eliminated, guess what? LSU is in the college playoffs. We're also going to have Michigan, Florida State, LSU, and then possibly Georgia, depending on how things go out. This plan obviously does for sure include LSU into this. The whole gang is here, and I mean, that's just my scenario on how LSU becomes the first team with 2 losses to enter into the college playoffs this season. And now we're going to go to the news and sports director for Louisiana Radio Network, Jeff Palmero, along with the assistant editor of Tiger Rag, William Weathers. We'll be sitting down with Nick Kelly, who started this whole thing, whether he knows it or not.
Let's bring in Nick Kelly from the Tuscaloosa News right now. Nick, thanks a lot for spending some time with us. Jeff Palmero along with William Weathers. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing
Good.
well.
Thank you.
Anxious for this game to get going. Love that there's 2 weeks of build up on it, but by the time Thursday rolls around, man, you're ready for this one to get going. But tell us a little bit about how this Alabama offense has evolved, and the fact that it might have taken a little bit for Tommy Rees to get comfortable and have a better understanding of the personnel that he is working with as a first-year offensive coordinator.
Yeah, it's been a process, and if you like roller coasters, you'd like this offense because it's been up and down all season. Really, a lot of it's been the growth of Jalen Milroe has been a big piece at quarterback, with such a high standard and a high bar set at that position over the past however many years, with the likes of Bryce Young, Mac Jones, Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, just all those guys. Have really kind of set a high expectation level for what Alabama's going to get from that position. And so I think that people looked at the A&M game last year and saw the turnovers and just got stuck on that. And granted, Jalen's had some struggles at times. He's made mistakes, but he really has grown. I think we've seen that. He's starting to run the offense better, be that point guard more that Nick Saban wants his quarterback to be. And so we've seen more of that. So Jalen's gotten better. I also think that the passing game as a whole has improved, so receivers are making more plays. We saw Jermaine Burton against Texas A&M really step up and have his best game in a crimson uniform for the Tide. And so I think the passing game has evolved, gotten better. The running game has shown flashes at times. That still needs to get more consistent. It hasn't been there maybe as much as I think folks expected or hoped it would be. But they have come a long way from South Florida because, I mean, the Texas loss, not ideal, but it wasn't necessarily rock bottom. But that USF win felt like rock bottom because Alabama couldn't get much going offensively. Just overall, really uninspiring football. So they've come a long way since then.
Hey, Nick, we were just kind of joking about this. What led to Ty Simpson and Tyler Buckner getting the start at South Florida and Milroe not even getting a snap? I mean, I know it didn't go well against Texas, but that was one game. And, of course, he's now the guy, and obviously they've taken off. But it was like, we were joking. Did he get suspended or something? Because obviously he's the guy for that offense.
Yeah, it puzzled me. I mean, I think if you had any doubts that he was the guy, you knew it after that South Florida game. I mean, I think a lot of it was Nick Saban had basically said they were going to get these other guys some opportunity. There's no better game to do that than against the South Florida. And really, whether this was his intention or not, he got the team basically to buy in that Jalen Milroe is the guy. I don't think there was a lot of divisiveness. It's not like they weren't following him, but if they weren't, they were after that. And I think that getting that buy-in is important. So I think some of it was just looking at what they have, seeing kind of what just is in the fold there and what they can do. And clearly they weren't up to the snuff that Alabama needs and wants. And so Jalen was clearly the guy after that. So I think a lot of it was just, hey, they have this competition. That was the true opportunity and probably a good opportunity to get those guys essentially an audition. And Buckner especially did not look good.
Talking with Nick Kelly from the Tuscaloosa News. Tell us a little bit about this running game, Nick. The feeling or what you keep hearing here in Baton Rouge, it's just not as good as it used to be or it has in the past. And I guess the offensive line as well. This is a unit that's given up a ton of sacks this season as well.
Yeah, so the running game, I think, yes, when you compare it to the likes of the Derrick Henry era or even just other backs they've had, even with Najee Harris, it's not been quite that level. Even Brian Robinson 2 years ago, he actually was really good for them, and he's had some success in the NFL as well. They haven't quite had that level of just pure domination at times. They've got some good players, and I think they've got a solid running game. It's not bad. I think they're about middle of the pack right now in the SEC. So it's decent, but it's just not maybe dominant or that next level like we've come to expect at times. So Jason McClellan's really solid. He's a fun player to watch, but again, he's not maybe necessarily at that same high level as a Derrick Henry. I mean, who is? But he's definitely their best back. But they also have Roydell Williams. They have Jam Miller. They also have a freshman, Justice Haynes, who they like. And so they've got some guys, but I think it just hasn't been on a consistent level enough of the running game having success. And that falls on the offensive line to an extent too. But then at times the offensive line has been good in the running game. They've got some big dudes up front. And so they've been solid. So I think it's a cliche that you hear a lot, but consistency is so key for this group because they've shown flashes. It's been really good at times, but other times they haven't been able to move the ball that well on the ground. So I think if there's a game to do it and to figure it out, it's this one, because if it's me, I'm trying to do everything I can to keep Jaden Daniels in that offense for LSU off the field because that group looks sharp.
I did not pay attention that much to the build-up in last week's game with Tennessee, but obviously I'm paying attention and taking notes this week. What struck out to me is that obviously I saw guys like Chris Braswell mentioning it, that they're taking this week very, very personal, just like they did the Tennessee loss last year. I mean, two losses on the final plays of the game, and that'll do enough, I guess, to get under your skin. Can you? And it's only Tuesday, but can you talk about just the build-up? You sense that these guys are emotionally going to be on another level come Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, they're human, right? I mean, it's one of those things where if you lose to someone, whether it's on a football field or you played a card game against them, you're going to remember that and you're going to want to beat them the next time. If you're a competitor, that's just how you work. And obviously, Alabama's so often been in a spot where they've had to motivate from the sense of we're already on top of the mountain, so to speak, and we want to stay there. But they've had to play more of that, hey, we've been knocked down. And I think that last week and this week are the best basically picture of that. And so I think it's a lot easier to motivate when you have lost and you are looking for that revenge factor. So, I think, they've said it's personal, but I wouldn't say it's anything crazier than what they said before Tennessee. And overall, it's just they want to win this game, and they didn't like how that felt last year. I mean, every time you get stormed, the field gets stormed, it's not a fun experience. And I can say that as someone who's had to fight to get to a post-game press conference while storming the field myself. But B, you don't forget that. So that sticks with you. So, I think they definitely want to win this. And then you add the extra fact that, oh, by the way, the team that wins this has a really good shot at winning the SEC West. And you got to win this to stay alive for the college football playoff if you're Alabama. I mean, there's plenty at stake, and I think last year's game certainly plays into that.
Talking with Nick Kelly from the Tuscaloosa News. Nick, let's talk about this Alabama defense against LSU's offense. LSU, very difficult to stop. How do you see Alabama going about it? Is it about trying to get pressure with their two outstanding linebackers on Jaden Daniels? Is that where it starts?
I think so. I mean, you don't want to get away from what you're good at. So I think if it's me, you're trying to find ways to create pressure, disrupt that offense, because if you're letting him just stand back there and pick you apart, it's not going to work well. I mean, Alabama has good defensive backs. Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terron Arnold are two really solid corners. And so I think that will help Alabama against the likes of Neighbors and Thomas. But at the same time, college football is a game that favors the offenses, that it's tough to hold points in, teams to 9-6 games, like we saw 12 years ago in Tuscaloosa. So I think that LSU is going to get theirs, but ultimately the more that you can affect Daniels, the more that you can get after him is only going to help Alabama and not force your secondary to have to make play after play.
The big picture view of the job that Coach Saban has done this year, I mean, by my count, he returned 9 returning starters, not counting specialists, 2, both coordinators, a first-year starting quarterback, and here you are, 7-1, 8 in the first seat college football playoff rankings. It just seems like he's done another masterful job, and I'm not sure people give him enough credit for it.
Yeah, depending on how this season shakes out, this honestly might be one of his best coaching jobs. If they win the West and play in Atlanta, I mean, to me, this has to be one of his best coaching jobs, because you go from where they were, as we talked earlier, you go from where they were in the beginning of the season with that close win over South Florida, losing to Texas. I mean, they were not far away from being 1-2 if a few plays didn't go as well as they did against South Florida down the stretch. I mean, so yeah, the fact that he's pulled this team up from that to be 7-1, to still have a good shot to win the West, to still have an outside shot at the college football playoff. I mean, this has to be one of his best coaching jobs. And obviously people are going to look at all his championships, and how could you say that if they don't win a championship? But with what he's been working with and what it looked like where they were at, for him to keep this team locked in and engaged and keep winning has been pretty remarkable.
And it seems like he is, I don't want to say it's a softer side of Nick Saban. That's certainly not it, but it seems like he is enjoying it more. Is that maybe a better way to say it, Nick? Knowing that, hey, he has to recognize that, there's some that I know that are hoping, hey, maybe this is it. Maybe this is it. But he's got to know that there's just maybe only a few more years left in this. And it seems like he is trying to take it all in and appreciate it a lot more.
Yeah, I think it's a fair assessment. I mean, people read the tea leaves how they want to read them, but whether it's an indication of how much time he has left or not, I mean, he's been doing this year 17? You got to stop and smell the roses a little bit and enjoy the process. I mean, and that's the thing. I think he recognizes too that whenever he does call it, he's going to miss this. I mean, that's why he keeps doing it. He loves doing it.
Right.
It's not just about, okay, can we win championships? So I think that, yeah, he is enjoying it a little bit more. And some people will say, Grandpa Saban, because he's got grandkids and plays into that a little bit. And I mean, he doesn't get on the media as much as he maybe used to. At least that's what folks tell me who covered him in his early days in Tuscaloosa. But yeah, he's enjoying it at times. He's smiling, but he still gets after guys. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
There are certain moments on the sideline where if he doesn't like what you're doing, he'll chew you out. So it's not that he's just giving everyone a big hug all the time.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
But I think it's fair to say he's enjoying it some.
Nick, got about a minute and a half here. What's an X factor here for Alabama? Maybe something we haven't brought up yet that might give Alabama the edge here Saturday night in Tuscaloosa.
Pass protection's key. I mean, the offensive line has struggled at times with that, particularly at left tackle. Has been a struggle spot for them at times, and so obviously the LSU defense is not has struggled at times. But at the same time, there have been defenses that haven't been that good that have still gotten pressure on Alabama. So I think that it's key for Alabama to protect Jalen Milroe, and if they can't do that, it can ruin a lot of things. Pass protection has been something we've been watching all season. It's been a struggle at times, and so I think it's going to be key in this one as well, especially if they have to get into an offensive shootout with LSU. You don't have much room for error at that point. So to me, how that left tackle spot plays and how the front as a whole protects Jalen Milroe is going to be really key.
Yeah, can Alabama get in a shootout with LSU? I mean, can they put up 40 points in this game?
That's a good question. To me, I would try not to. It comes back to I would try to run the football as much as you can to keep LSU off the field. But they do have some guys, Isaiah Bond, Jermaine Burton. They can really complete some deep passes, some big plays. So that's one thing Jalen Milroe is really good at is some big plays in the passing game. So maybe they can, but I still would rather keep that LSU offense off the field.
Good analysis, Nick. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the game on Saturday.
Nick, thank you for giving me some inspiration for my topic today. I'm very passionate about it, if you didn't hear. Now let's hear from former LSU football player Gordy Rush, who is also the sideline reporter for LSU Sports Radio Network and the general manager of Guarantee Media.
Gordy Rush will be on the sidelines there at Bryant-Denny Stadium. He joins us now on Tiger Rag Radio. Gordy, how you doing tonight? This is, everyone gets juiced up for this game, whether it's the players, whether it's the fans, the broadcasters, cheerleaders. This is kind of why we do what we do, right, Gordy?
No, absolutely, guys, and good evening. Happy Halloween to you. And William, it's gone from summer to winter, and it's going to be summer, I think, maybe in Tuscaloosa. So it's a little bit warmer, so we'll be ready for that. But, I think this I heard a little bit of Coach Saban's comments. I mean, this game is more times than not, meant so much. It's been the driver's seat game for the SEC West. It's been a tremendous rivalry since Coach Saban's gone back to Alabama. And it's just an incredible atmosphere. And to have this game at night on national TV just adds to it.
No doubt about it. All right, let's get right into it, Gordy. Obviously, the big talk is at LSU regarding the missing starters that they will not have for this game, starting with the cornerback spot, because that's where I think it hurts more, not having someone like Zy Alexander compared to Mekhi Wingo. But both of them, I think, is certainly going to have an impact on this game, not having them. Your thoughts on LSU possibly, or at least the way it appears, that they'll likely have to start converted safety Sage Ryan at one corner, sophomore LaTerrence Welch at another, as Zy Alexander unable to play, and we continue to hear that Deuce Chestnut and Denver Harris remain inactive. So how do you see this breaking out? That we keep hearing, Gordy, hey, this is not a great group of Alabama wide receivers, but still, it's still Alabama, and even when LSU was going up against average receivers, they were having a hard time earlier this season keeping up with them.
No question. Missouri and Florida State had some outstanding ones. I didn't think it was an elite group for Ole Miss, and they had a field day on the secondary. I think the biggest concern is the cornerback position. I think we last saw Welch in significant playing time against Ole Miss, and he had a rough afternoon. Look, I thought Alexander was playing really good football, and finally in the second half of this the Missouri football game, LSU kind of moved to a 4-3 and settled on Alexander and Sage Ryan at the cornerbacks, and in particular, Alexander was playing what we call a boundary corner, and he was rolled up and was really comfortable in that position. He was long, and he was able to play some bump and run coverage. And when he was injured, the move that they took Ryan all the way to Alexander's position, to that boundary corner, and that meant a freshman or Welch was going to play what we call the field corner, which is off the ball, and that's covering a lot of space. And you look at Alabama, and I beg to differ, Burton's a really good receiver, but they have been hot as of late, and Milrose has done a real good job of stretching the football field. And to me, it's the X factor in this game. How's this LSU secondary, who's played well the last couple games, albeit Auburn and Army were not great offensive ball clubs, not great passing clubs, but they've settled down, I think, settled into a defense. How are they going to adjust with a new cornerback having to play that open field corner position?
Hey, Gordy, here we are in the 9th playing day, and we're talking, obviously, the cornerback position. Did you feel like in December when you heard that they had signed, 4 transfer portal guys, that they were trying to address this very need and this problem, and it's persisted, and the inactivity part of it is, leads us to lead that there's a suspension or whatever. But
right.
Did you feel like in December, not that it was over with, but they had at least addressed it like they did the year before, bringing in Jerry Bernard Converse and Mekhi Garner?
Right, and I mean I think it's a great question, and for me, I was more concerned about the safety position than I was the corner, because they're so thin at the safety position, and they did have numbers, but that's the problem with, I think, today's football with the transfer portal. You had these new faces. Johnson, who we got to see the last week, I believe, from Ohio State. It was the last week of spring, and he was hurt. I watched him move around out there, and Chestnut was hurt. Neither one of those two panned out. We, assume what's going on with Harris. He's a tremendous talent. He hasn't been able to put it together off the field to get on the field, to play significant time. It took Alexander a while to settle in, and I think that's what's so hard, is trying to get all these new players, teach them the defense, teach them to play fundamentally how you want them to, and it just has not happened. There's just been a lot of bad luck for LSU at the cornerback position, because they certainly had the numbers going into spring football.
Talking with Gordy Rush, who is the sideline reporter on the LSU Sports Radio Network. Let's flip it up to the other side. How do you see this LSU offense match up against this stout Alabama defense? Correct me if you think I'm wrong here, but I think this is the best defense they faced against since Florida State. I want to see how much this offense has grown up since then, Gordy, because in that game, even though it was quote unquote a neutral atmosphere, it was certainly a pro Florida State crowd, and it was obviously early first game of the season. You had some drops there, some critical drops. This offense just didn't click for a 17-minute period, which absolutely killed them in that game. So I'm really interested to see how they're going to battle through the adversity this Saturday in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, well, Jeff, let me help you. That was a road game. That wasn't a neutral site game in Orlando. So much. I mean, Diggs didn't play in that football game.
Yeah, that's a big factor. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Jaden stuttered. I think the offensive line struggled a little bit. Some pass pro. And you mentioned the drops. They just weren't on the same page, and they're clicking at a higher rate. I think it's a fantastic matchup, and I think Alabama's the second best defense that they face this season. I'm really interested to see what Nick Saban / Kevin Steele does with this defense, or rather this offense. because you can't do just one thing. I mean, this is a real well-balanced offense. Jaden is seeing the football feel so much better than he was a year ago. He's understanding pre-snap what he's looking at, and they've got two deep threats in Thomas and Neighbors. And so what makes that so difficult is that Alabama likes to play a lot of man-free. That's one safety over the top and man-to-man coverage. And everybody and their brother has been running a double at Neighbors. And there have been times where Auburn and Missouri both ran what we call doubles or bracket coverage at Neighbors and Thomas, which means, one, somebody else is open or got single coverage, and two, you can run the football. And so Alabama, who usually, and they probably have the best secondary that LSU's faced, has great DBs out there. Are they going to be able to hold up if they go man-to-man coverage against Neighbors and Thomas? I think it's going to be a fascinating chess match, and I think the key for me is going to be LSU's offensive line and pass protection. They've come a long way since Florida State, but they're going to have to be able to give Jaden some time.
Well, you just beat me to the punch because I was going to ask you about that because I think Emory Jones coming back puts LSU complete again, but they're going against a formidable unit that's not only third in the conference but fourth nationally. That they can bring it.
Oh no! Actually, you're gonna see a lot of blitz and stunt packages. Steele is really aligned, with Nick, and that when he was here at LSU, he said he had a blitz for every state in the United States. He had 50 of them. I think the great thing about LSU is that when you go no huddle and you go a little bit of tempo, you avoid personnel switches, right? And so that limits, let's say that limits the West Coast and the Mountain West. So that takes away some of those states. And then, I think the fact that LSU spreads the football field, it just limits what you can do. It really dictates to a defense, we're going to spread you out, and there's a couple things you can do, and we're going to key on a couple things, and it becomes a numbers game. If you're going to back up and cover me, we're going to run the football or throw some short stuff. If you come and you want to bring pressure, we're going to make you pay over the top. And they've been so good this year offensively. Hopefully they continue to stay in rhythm after this bye week.
Talking with Gordy Rush, sideline reporter on the LSU Sports Radio Network. Getting back to LSU defensively, the decision to finally lock in a spot for Harold Perkins on this defense, the Sam linebacker, nickel back, however they want to describe it, how big has that been, or how beneficial has that been to this LSU defense?
Yeah, I think it's been huge. He didn't look comfortable with the inside linebacker. He really, that was foreign to him. And then they tried playing him out at a true nickel position and some nickel and dime packages, and he's not a DB. I think the big change was going from a 3-4 to a 4-3. The four-man front fit their personnel better. I think Savion Jones has played a lot better since that move. The two transfers, Swinson and number 2 from Texas have played really well. I think it fits them. And then the Jefferson, to me, has been more of an inside defensive tackle in a 4-3 than he was a 3-4 as a defensive tackle. And Mason Smith's returned; he's healthy and he's played better. So, and they got numbers up there. And now you have Perkins, where he's covered up and he's able to run sideline to sideline in that Sam defense. He's in his natural habitat, and I think that the return of Omar Spates to the other side, he's a tremendous athlete too. He's playing the wheel. And that's a really good linebacker crew there when you put Penn. That's 3 of the best. I'd put them up against anyone in the country. You
mentioned Omar Spates. I mean, what's the difference with him now compared to earlier this season? Obviously not healthy, right, Gordy? I mean,
yeah.
What are they getting out of him now that they obviously weren't earlier in the year?
So I think 2 things. He's healthy, right? And then the second thing, again, from the four-man front, I think that he's probably better in that will position than an inside linebacker in a 3-4 or whatever, the nickel, the dime, the different packages. I think he's such a good athlete, and he's so versatile. You can put him out there in space, and we've seen him run sideline to sideline. We've seen him in cover. So I think a combination of both.
Gordy, it should be a fun one. Thanks a lot for your time tonight. We really appreciate it.
People come from everywhere to Pawpaw's Campers and Kayaks.
Hello at Pawpaw
Pawpaw's Campers and Cities, Pawpaw's Campers and Cars of people.
And we're going to let it go for I forgot.
Take the whole family over to Picayune. We got something for you. All right. What else we going to say?
PawpawsNicePrice.com.
That's probably all we need to say.
All right, that's it for today's episode. I want to thank Gordy for his interview and thank Nick Kelly again for coming in and giving us his thoughts. That's a wrap on how LSU will be making it to the college playoffs this year. I'll talk to you guys later this week. I would like to thank our sponsor, Pawpaw's Campers and Cars, pawpawsrvs.com, 1-800-728-CAMP, 1-800-728-2267.